Are you ready to become awesomer? Hello, everyone. This is Umar Hamid, your host, and welcome to the No Limit Selling Podcast, where industry leaders share their tips, strategies, and advice on how to make you better, stronger, faster. Get ready for another episode. Today, I have the privilege of having Ryan O'Neill, a friend and the leader of the Minnesota real estate team of RE/MAX Advantage Plus. Ryan, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you so much, Umar. Really a pleasure. Always a pleasure being on with you.
The reason I'm excited is because, you've done all the stages of real estate to build, a successful team, a successful business. And I wanted to share a quick story with you and then ask you the first question. And the story I wanted to share with you is this. I was reading Andy Grove's book. He's one of the founders of Intel.
Yeah.
And it was a story about, in their history, at the beginning, they were the leader in memory chips for computers. And they dominated. The Japanese were coming in with chips, and Intel's internal thoughts were, we're the best. Japanese don't stand a chance. But the microprocessors were coming into their own at that point, and Intel was trying to decide, do we invest in where we dominate, memory chips, or do we invest in this new thing called microprocessors? Because they were part of the company that had, got this dominance in memory chips, and they've got a legacy and a history, it was really hard for them to make a decision. And this went on for months and months. And in this one particular scene, Gordon Moore from, I'm not sure if you've heard Moore's Law, computer processing power doubles every 18 months.
Yes.
Him and Andy Grove are thinking about, what to do. And then Andy has this thought. And the thought is, if the old team got fired and we were the new team coming in to head up Intel, what would we do? And the instant answer both of them go is microprocessors. It's not even considering memory chips. But when they were part of the legacy, it was a hard decision to make. So with that frame in place, what I'm looking to do is, if you and I were starting a brand new brokerage, bringing in agents that are fresh, what would we do differently to help them go from, a standing start to making a living in the first year? Because there's such a attrition rate of realtors. So I was hoping we could workshop how we'd build this company that would get 80% of realtors coming into the business to be successful in the first year.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And, hearing your story, about Intel, I think what's interesting to me, and I started in the business in 2003. So, over the last 16 years, I've had the good fortune of meeting a lot of really wonderful folks, agents who are maybe seasoned, some who are brand new, some who are just getting into the industry. And, it is very interesting to me, Umar, because there is a significant number of agents with really all companies, all brokerages that get into the business. Maybe they'll do a transaction or two or three, and then after a few months or 6 months or a year, they end up exiting the industry. And so I think a lot of it, in thinking about this, strategizing, kind of workshopping, a lot of it comes down to expectations, I think, up front for, what's being provided to the new potential agent, the new, as far as thoughts on, hey, what should I expect getting into this industry? What is the industry all about? And how can we give those folks real world data on what it's really like? And of course, that sounds great in principle, and you would think, hey, Umar, the schools, the realtor schools that people go to across the country, they should really provide that data, for people, that information, so they can make good informed decisions whether or not this is the right career. But I do feel that there's some disconnect in the sense that, I've met so many wonderful, well-intentioned folks that get into this industry, and then, again, within a year or 6 months, leave the industry. And again, I'm certainly not faulting them by any means at all, but there is this large disconnect, and it is, I think, for brokers across the country, it it can be kind of a question mark, like, what's going on here? Why is this
So, a couple
happening?
of thoughts. So, thanks for sharing that. A couple of thoughts. The first thought that comes up is health clubs. How many people join health clubs because the thought of working out and being healthier and sexier is so compelling that we will pay for a membership we don't use? Uh, so, with that kind of frame in mind, uh, I wonder how many people come into real estate and they're really seeing it through rose colored glasses in terms of, yeah, I know what the stats are for agents, but I'm going to be the exception. That I wonder what
Right.
percentage is self delusion, because oftentimes we only hear what we want to listen to.
It's a really good point. And what's interesting about it, Umar, is I think it's natural for us to, in today's social media, digital entertainment world, it's fun to watch all the various real estate shows, and, with kind of the happy buying and selling experiences. And in some senses, I think it makes the career look great, which again, it very well can be and often is. But oftentimes, I think it maybe gives an impression too that it's a lot maybe easier than people think. I've had multiple agents over the years, again, not just with our team, but really friends across the industry who will say to me, "Gosh, this job is way, way harder than I thought it would ever be." And I think maybe it is um, the rose colored or romanticizing of what it's really going to be like getting into this industry. And one thing I've found a lot, Umar, is when an agent really has comes from a background where they've had a maybe another job that was a 40-hour a week, or 40
Right.
hour a week plus position, where they had to show up at 8 or 9 in the morning. They had to do stuff during the day. Some of it they liked, some of it they didn't like. Those people that come from some type of work ethic, that are used to getting out of their comfort zone, doing things maybe that they don't want to do every day. Those are the people, in my opinion, that have really shown the propensity to succeed over time in the real estate industry. Because again, no broker really, or no team leader is managing so much with their folks that they're calling people at 9 in the morning saying, "Hey, where are you today? Why did what are you doing? Why didn't you call this? Why are you not at the meeting?" No one's really doing that. There's varying degrees of it, but I think that's what can be a challenge for folks.
Definitely. And I'm almost thinking that there's a guy called Chet Holmes. He wrote The $1 Million Sales Machine. And there was this
Yes.
one section in there that he was talking about when he's hiring salespeople and he thinks he's got the right salespeople in mind. He pushes back really, really hard, telling them that they're going to fail or they don't have what it takes. And what he was looking for was very much like the true performers and the true believers would push back and say, "You don't know what you're talking." And the
Right.
people that were posers would say, although they were really strong through the entire interview, at that point they go, "Well, okay, thank you very much for your time," and kind of step away. And not that I want team leaders to do that necessarily, but I wonder if there's some kind of uh, greater vetting we can do beforehand, and also almost like an apprenticeship that would serve the person coming into the industry in a way that they would pick up the necessary skills, because at the end of the day, it's more profitable for Ryan O'Neill to have an agent that is with him for 5 years producing really well than somebody coming in for doing 2 deals in that year and then just leaving.
You're right. You're right, Umar. And I think that, there's a variety of different business models out there for real estate brokers on who they want to find, and and training and whatnot. At least with what I've always done, we're small, and for me, it's my time
Yes.
personally invested with that person, but even more so on a human level. It's about trying to do the right thing and saying what's good for this person long term. In other words, I want to sit down with them a year, 2 years, 5 years from now, and really feel like they're enjoying the career. It's what they want to do, etc. But I think, I think your point is spot on about um, having an agent, maybe could be described that has a little passion or a little fire, if you will, that if they're getting objections that, hey, this isn't maybe the right career for you, that they're able to come back and say why this, why they believe it is. Because truly, for me, Umar, it all comes down to, what is the motivating factor that gets the agent out of bed
Yes.
in the morning. I've seen a lot of times with young parents that, if they're the primary income earner, their kids, their family, the need to make money is there. They need to do something. That why is their son or daughter. So I think, at least for me and for fellow agents, brokers, that may be listening, I always try to determine, what is that why? And do they really need to do this job? Because at the end of the day, if they don't have that fire and passion, I find that the, over time, it's very easy to just fade out in the industry. And maybe it isn't a kind of an apprenticeship. We try to
Yes.
do a lot of shadowing, where newer agents come on board and work with kind of senior agents the first month or two to see what they're doing and how it works. But so much of it, Umar, and I think comes down to how is that person wired. In other words, they can learn so much about the paperwork and the listing process and houses and construction. But ultimately, this is a human business. It's about relationships. It's about talking to people, building relationships. And it's hard oftentimes, as you know, probably better than almost anybody, it's hard to rewire people, in some senses. For someone like me, if you've got someone that they just, personality wise, it makes it difficult for them to
Makes
do
sense.
this
And it's
job.
really kind of interesting in terms of, it's a people business and connecting with people. And I think the ultimate connection ends up being the connection with ourselves. And, those hopes and fears and anxieties, because, when anything is going well, you don't touch those issues normally. So everything goes swimmingly well. But as soon as tough times come, we kind of zero in on those vulnerabilities within ourselves, and they become larger than life, and stop us dead in our tracks.
Right, right. Yeah, it is. It is. I think. I think trying to, and again, in a small way with our team, I try to help people understand in that initial meeting, that those first, hey, my license is going active, really trying to determine that why, trying to find out what is their work ethic, what, are they going to spend some time doing this job? Because again, the romanticization of this can make it just seem so wonderful. You show wonderful homes, and you make large commissions, and again, that's sometimes the public perception
Yes.
or people getting into the industry. And for those of us that are, in the trenches every day, know that it can be a 60, 70 hour a week job that sometimes can have a lot of upside. Sometimes it is not as much upside, but it's like any job, I mean, there's no free lunch. And I just think for agents, if they can have that mentality and realize that it is going to take time, and they need, some reserves. I'm a big believer, Umar, that they need to have some, know that it's going to take a few months to get something going. You need to have some reserves, and instead of getting into it, and if you don't sell 5 houses in 3 months, you say, hey, I'm done. This is,
Yes.
you're starting a business. This is a brand new business. Any business, really, you talk to business owners, it
And
takes time.
even if you're well funded, to actually start making money takes time, and let alone, you're the business yourself.
Right. Right. You're exactly right. I just think having that mentality as well is something that I think can help the agent, because we all can be our toughest critics. At the end of the day, and especially if you see other people succeeding in the industry or doing well, you kind of scratch your head and say, "Hey, why am I not doing well?" Well, you have to remember you're looking at people at all various phases of business development, of success, and again, this job, in my humble opinion, comes down all about relationship building. And at the end of the day, as we know, in any good relationship, it takes time. You've got to take time. It takes effort, dedication, and I think the more that new agents can have that mentality, they can take that leap, Umar, to that next phase and becoming a more of a
So here's a
consistent top
suggestion, Ryan,
producer.
and I'm just making this up as I go along here. So bear with me. It'd be good in the interview process,
Yeah,
when you really build up rapport with someone and you let me give you a data point first and I'll come back to this conversation. One of the biggest frustrations for me in podcasting
yeah,
is you and I are going to have a great conversation and then I'm going to switch off the recording and we'll chat for a few minutes later. And sometimes the richest content comes at the end of the podcast that we're not recording. And it's like, darn it, I wish we would have recorded that. But, but But let me come back
right.
because it's almost like the pressure's off. Not that you feel pressure in this, but we just are more freer. So I wonder what will happen if one of the interview
Right,
strategies was to, do the formal interview, and then once that's over, then say, so
right.
tell me about something that where time flies by, we get into flow. What's that hobby or the passion or time in your life, and really get them to talk about that issue. And when the interview's over, their guards go down, and when they talk about that stamp collecting or working with their kids, coaching for their teams, whatever it is, take a look at their body language and actually the language they use and the mannerisms of something that they, will work to the end of the day for, have passion for, have desire for, and then come back to, one of the areas in, real estate is prospecting and connecting and asking for referrals and just go back to one of those things that you thought there might be a weakness and really get a good sense of how they think about that. And when you get that gap between how they light up in the area they're really passionate about and what they need to do to be successful, I think that would be a great thing to probe them on, saying, did you notice that when we're talking about this activity that you do not have that level of passion? I wonder if that would give more insights to the interviewer,
Right.
but more importantly, insights to the interviewee that kind of goes, yeah, I don't. So what do I need to do to get it? Or what do I need to do to improve on that? Because if I don't, you are not going to make it in this industry.
You're right, Umar. I think that's a really good analogy. I mean, especially the way I was visualizing it in my head as you were describing it. I think ultimately it comes down to helping them, determine that passion, and and again, in a small way. That's actually, it's interesting because what I'll mention to people um, is, for me, prior to getting in the real estate industry, I was, really involved with music, and my brother and I, with playing piano and singing, and my dad was always really supportive of it because ultimately he said, guys, life is too short. You do need to find that, but do what you want to do. And so I've tried with the agent when I'm talking to them, instead of looking at it saying, hey, how can I make a buck off this guy or gal and have them sell a few houses and keep churning more, really try to, on a human level, try to say,
Yes.
look, what is your passion? What do you want to do? Do you want to be a musician? Do you want to be a public speaker? Do you want to, work landscaping? Do that, because I think, to your point, when people are following that, the money follows, the time invested follows. And I just think for a lot of people, they look at real estate, the romanticization, the rose colored, as you talked about, glasses, and make it look
Mm-hmm.
so fun. I love houses is a common expression for people. Well, I love houses. Well, this job really isn't, that isn't an important criteria in my opinion. I mean, certainly you got to understand houses, but it's not, that isn't a reason to become a real estate agent
Oh,
because
definitely.
there's a heck of a lot more to it
So
than just I love
tell
houses.
me about if you can think of a particular agent and change names and to protect the innocent, someone that was failing that you were able to kind of provide that insight that allowed them to kind of turn things around. Do you have like one of those stories in your hip pocket?
I do. It's interesting you asked that because you know, um, there was an agent with us that still is with our team that was coming from actually was a prior landscaper. Worked very hard, doing landscaping, and just a really good guy, hardworking person. And he got into the real estate industry. Was actually with another company for a while, with a friend of mine at that other company. And the friend actually called me up at this firm and just said, "Hey, you know what? This agent, I'll just pick a name, Bob. Bob's with me here. He's not doing great. I figured maybe you and your team might be another option for him. Do you want to reach out?" So I reached out to Bob, had a conversation. He came on board, joined us, and early on, I noticed that Bob was continually trying to impress customers, buyers, and sellers, and a lot of the impressing the what was through kind of the spoken word in meetings, sitting down with a potential buyer or seller, investor, real estate investor, and it was a lot of talking, Umar. It was a lot about, hey, this is what I am doing, and here's my experience, and here's how
Yes.
great I can help people, and all this talking, 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 and no listening, no taking an interest in the other party and the consumer in what's important to them. And he struggled the first year to even on our team, and we ended up connecting, and again, this may seem elementary to some, but I think oftentimes it's just self awareness. Having someone that can help you be self aware. And in this case, he's a good friend of mine. I just said, "Hey, Bob, here's something that you're doing, in all your meetings. You need to stop talking. You need to take an interest in the other party and just show interest in them. Ask them about their kids, their family, get to know them, build a relationship." And literally, Umar, he made that one change. And this was probably, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago. And since that time, Bob has been consistently one of the top sellers on our entire team. Because of it, he's got a great work ethic. He's a very hard worker, but he just made a focus on the consumer. And so I think sometimes for agents with our advertising, with everything that we do, we make it all about us. I tell our folks, people don't care. They don't care about us. They care whether or not we can help them, we can fill a need for them as a consumer, and they can trust us. And I think when a broker looks at it more from that perspective and looks at their agents and helps them become self aware, it can take folks that are failing, that are trying so hard to sell, 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 sell. It's not about selling. And that's what Bob was doing. And so that change, Umar, he made that simple change, and becoming self-aware of it, and consistently is one of our top sellers every year now.
Thank you for sharing that because I think it's a good lesson for any leaders that are listening. It's very much so there's a process to doing our business, and we need to kind of really figure out where in the process people need improving, and if we can give them the insights there. Like you said, sometimes it doesn't take this you know super magical thing. It's what you described was you listening to him to uncover what the issue was, and then happened to be a listening issue for him as well. So you you modeled something pretty powerful. It's like, hey, you've been trying to figure this out, and I got this by listening to what you do. So amazing.
Well, here's one thing that I would add. I think for an important thing for everyone in our lives, I think we all need to be willing to be coached, willing to listen, and here's the last thing I think most important, Umar. We have to be willing to take feedback. and about being self-aware of maybe how are we coming off to others? How is my behavior impacting other people? And what we may think is the right is how it's coming off. It is not always the case. And that's where I think, again, any good business leader, any good agent who's looking to elevate their business, take it to the next level, you need to have that person or people in your life that will be able to give you meaningful feedback on, hey, this is what I don't like. Or do you realize you're doing this? Because a lot of times people just, it's kind of in Minnesota, we joke about it. They call it Minnesota nice. We really, no one ever wants to say anything um, negative. And my brother Tim, who's a successful business owner, Tim is very good at this. He's good at it and doing it in a kind and caring way with family members, business employees, whoever, where he can give good feedback that's meaningful, that's helpful to the person without it being demeaning and the person feeling like, boy, I feel horrible right now. So I just think that's important for people listening. Think about those in your life. Do you have that person who can really say, hey, what's my deal? How do I come off to people? How am I known? That's important. And you've got to be able to be willing to adapt and change if needed.
Absolutely. And I'll leave you with one last thought. I do a lot of videos, and this one woman was complaining about the audio quality. And the audio quality is perfectly fine. Thank you very much. And it kind of really pissed me off that she had said that.
Right.
But when I looked at it, it was like, yeah, it could be better. And because of her observation, after I got over myself, it took me a day to do that. I got some help and improved the audio quality significantly. But if she wasn't brave enough to tell me, and I wasn't eventually able to listen to it, I still would have, mediocre audio quality. And it's that ability to take feedback. And what you said at the beginning of this conversation was agents need to realize it's all about relationship. And
Right.
the same thing for team leaders. When you have that relationship with your agents, there's a level of trust there. So when you do give them feedback, it's not seen as negativity, but somebody helping me. So at the end of the day, it's a relationship business. And the stronger the relationships, the better we do.
You're right. You're right. And I think that sums it up very well. And being okay, to your point, Umar, I've had people give me feedback before, if someone leaves our organization, if someone, I always ask for feedback because at the end of the day, I don't claim to have the answers and I want to continue to improve. And I think when you look at athletes, top athletes, when you
Yes.
look at top people in any field, they are continually trying to improve and adapt. And I just think from an agent perspective, it's no different. If you're brand new, you're looking to become successful. If you're looking to go from, 10 deals a year to 20, 20 to 40, be willing to be coached, be willing to listen to others because, being a student of the game, which I try to be, can really help you and help you continue to grow. And I think that you'll look back years from now and say, what, that has helped my business tremendously.
Brilliant. Ryan, thanks so much for sitting down with me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure, Umar. And for anyone ever listening, if I can ever be a help or resource to you or your business, certainly don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. I have a heart for helping other agents, brokers, and from my perspective, whatever I could ever do to help your business, I'm all for it. But I thank you for your kind invite, Umar.
Excellent. And just for the listeners, there's going to be all the links to Ryan on the show notes. So reach out. He means it. And talk to you soon, Ryan. Take care.
Yeah, thank you, Umar. Have a great week.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. And if you're looking for more tools, go to my website at nolimitselling.com. I've got a free mind training course there that's going to teach you some insights from the world of neuro-linguistic programming, and that is the fastest way to get better results.